drama about Nintendo, misinformation about Nintendo has been spreading throughout the weekend. And we're here to tell you not to get tricked by misinformation.
Weekend misinformation. Not the best.
No, it was very dramatic for a couple of days.
So this was just a good sort of microcosm of something that feels like it's been happening more and more.
Totally.
And in this case, it did kind of resolve itself, whereas there are other things that are still like, oh, did you know Mario Kart World is $90? Like there's still some things out there that are getting a free pass.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see whether this thing lives on or not, but let's look at exactly what happened. So started with a tweet from our friend Stealth, who's been on our podcast and such, sharing a quote that he found. Shigeru Miyamoto spoke with Kyoto News about why Nintendo has made a serious push into making movies. The quote goes, "Games eventually stop running when newer versions come out, but films remain forever." Mm-hmm. And from there, the internet took
it and went wild with it. Yeah.
We got some examples of what people were saying here. This is honestly the worst take Miyamoto has ever had. I really hope this is poorly translated because this is a Hollywood brain rot take. Miyamoto saw how many zeros his check from Illumination had and was like, lol, video games suck. This is probably the most important person in gaming history saying, yeah, games are products that need to be replaced with newer ones. We are so cooked, dude. No, not going to get me. Not going to get me. What was your reaction when you inevitably saw this going about your Sunday?
Yeah, I was very suspicious about the quote because, you never know what the source is from. And also, dealing with a man who is Japanese, you always have to question the translation.
Yes.
But I did see what was happening and sort of the fervor and the wildfire effect that something like this has, because it's a very juicy quote, right?
Yes.
It's very juicy. Like, can you imagine the father of video games saying that video games suck and they're not worthy to preserve? Like, that was the sort of the nature of how the quote was being interpreted, how the quote was being shared. And so it's very easy, I think, for people to immediately latch on to these negative things because the internet is just a wild and crazy place. And so I was quite suspicious about what was going on, but I can also understand why so many people started to reshare and started to get very concerned over this, because if in fact there's any, type of reality or truth to it, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to you, which was like, I don't have the time to click through the source. I was doing a bunch of stuff on a Sunday, but I was like, my gut feeling is that this is not actually what this quote is. Either this is some sort of Google Translate situation, or we have seen situations where, there's a reason Bill Trinen is one of the best in the business at translating, is he can take the original Japanese words and turn them into something that makes sense in English, but retains the original intent of what the person was saying.
That's really difficult because there's a lot of context that I think gets lost with translations, especially in an interview setting, because there's questions before and after what everything was said. And so if you don't have the context and you don't translate the context, then it's very easy for things to get misinterpreted.
And in this case, the phrasing of this phrase, games eventually stop running. I was like, there's something about the phrasing of this that is not how we see these things talked about.
Exactly.
In proper, just stop running in a context of games. This sentence does not make sense to me. This is not something he would say. This is not how they would translate it. I'm putting this in my mind of, I don't really buy this.
Exactly. There's definitely some weird phrasing here. Later we found out, after there was a more thorough research of the source and of the context, that he was speaking about the museum.
Right.
Which is why he said would eventually stop running, which makes more sense.
But even then, the translation is suspicious.
It's very suspicious.
But the thing was, we didn't see, again, we saw people taking this and running with it, and that's fine. It's not the obligation of literally every single person to I'm gonna do the proper research that the original person maybe didn't to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Didn't really see a lot of pushback on this, though. It was just kind of taking it for what it is.
Right.
And, letting the takes fly.
Yeah.
The vitriolic takes, whatever. And we saw, different people, people from like emulation are like, well, this is why I do what I do. And they're like, oh.
Everyone's taking it to...
like, oh, this is why we need the virtual console to come back. And like kind of having their pet cause and
that's what I was
inserting that into like, oh, well, this is why every day, this is why I'm talking about this.
Yeah, so it's like everyone's using using this quote to further their own like cause or their own opinion. They're not even like thinking about the accuracy of the quote or the source of the quote. And yes, maybe they shouldn't have to do that, but you also kind of should have to do it a little bit. But they're just the intent behind it becomes very skewed.
But it does go back to something that we've been talking about a lot lately, which is we see a lot of people online who are just looking to reinforce beliefs that they already have versus looking at things from a different angle, thinking about a different point of view. It's like, oh no, this is why this reinforces my belief and why I am right.
Yeah. And people seem to really dig in these days too. Like there's something very personal and just very like, I don't know, like visceral almost about it, where if they're seen to accept any other opinion that's not what they've been talking about or what they believe in, it means that they've like lost or they've suffered some kind of like slight or something like that. So it's just become a very interesting way that people are using news to either be an echo chamber of their own making or just like reinforcing opinions that they already have.
Yeah. So time passed on Sunday. Later on in sort of the afternoon/early evening, some people did start to look at the original sourcing of this quote. And this is the article that Stealth was mentioning. This was from Kyoto News. And again, you might be wondering what Kyoto News is. And it's just kind of like an English language aggregator of like news from Japan. And here's the original article that I thought very notably does not have an author attached to it.
I was like, did AI write this article?
It's quite possible that it is. So it's just from Kyoto News, and it's about how Nintendo and Capcom are taking steps into movies, and they pulled the quote, but what they didn't say was this quote is actually a year old.
Right.
Kyoto News did not interview Mr. Miyamoto, and it was a quote that he did from an interview that he did about the Nintendo Museum. Mm-hmm. And that interview is also in Japanese, but if you look at it in its entirety, there's a lot more to it. So here's an alternative translation of it that includes more in sort of the before and after from what was originally shared, and I'll read that. Ultimately, what people remember are the IPs. Games become obsolete when new versions come out, but that's incredibly sad. We started video production partly because of that sadness, seeing our creations become playable only on Virtual Console. So I think there's some quibbles with that translation as well. Like Virtual Console is not something that is currently offered or exists. Which, again, this points to like the challenge of the translation, because it's like, well, how can so many different people have come away with so many different interpretations?
Exactly.
Isn't it not just a one-for-one, which is like, again, when people get mad about game localizations, like, well, just literally,
one-for-one,
literally translate what it is. It's like you would literally be reading gibberish.
Yeah, it would make no sense at all.
Yes, like Japanese is not a language that you can just put it through the machine and get the exact intent. And
very contextual
we've seen
language.
This with so many, like, working with so many different translators and people who work in the localization, they're like, we see a lot of variation in the way that Japanese speakers construct their sentences.
Exactly.
So I remember when I worked at Konami, the people, it's so hard to translate for Koji Igarashi, who was the guy behind Castlevania. It's like there's just something about the way that he composes his thoughts, composes his sentence that is very alternative to a lot of people, where it's like, I need to re-piece together.
Yeah, you're like doing a puzzle in your head.
The things that he has said. So maybe he said 3 or 4 sentences. It's like, I need to completely reshape this to be able to convey it to you in a way that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, we've sat through hundreds.
Right. And we don't speak Japanese, but we've heard those sorts of things enough to, it's like, okay, there's something about, there's a lot of work that needs to happen in the brains of these translators.
Yeah, I mean, we've literally sat through we've staffed hundreds of these interviews where you sit with Mr. Miyamoto, you sit with Mr. Aonuma, or any other Japanese developer, and you sit with a translator, and you are like kind of engaging in this back and forth of translation and question and answer. And like a lot of times, you know, when they translate it, you can tell like, wait, this isn't quite right. We need to continue to clarify, continue to do, you know, stuff to make sure that the true meaning gets across. And if you don't do that work, like these kinds of things can very easily happen.
So I think, again, like, you know, trying to look beyond this, like if you're trying to be kind of more thoughtful about this kind of thing, and one of these quotes pops up again, you know, I would a very easy thing you can do is like, was this originally in Japanese? And if so, where did this translation come from?
Right. And then read the context but around the quote itself, right?
Right. And you know, there are people out there like who are these sort of good Samaritans who are very fluent in Japanese who are like, okay, I actually went ahead and I did the proper translation of this, but you know, you can't, sometimes you can't count on that, which is how these things happen. So again, more time pass, people, you know, start to like, wait, what's going on here?
This is not right.
And our friend Gene Park jumps off the top rope with the big Washington Post elbow.
Oh boy.
The flying elbow.
Yeah, the flying post elbow.
So he's just expressing a lot of frustration about like, oh wait, there was really nothing about this at all. This was taken out of context. Here's sort of what he posted. He's calling out a couple outlets. Here's Games Radar and The Gamer just regurgitating a made-up quote. This isn't journalism. They do zero original reporting of their own. Do nothing to confirm the quote with anyone. This kind of media will be replaced by AI just scrubbing online garbage to recycle. And when again, we were like, is this original article made by AI in the first place?
Exactly.
Quite
is it just
possibly.
AI slop getting AI recycled?
Exactly. So it's like, wow, this is a very precarious place for us to be. But this is something that we see in relation to ourselves. Like,
all the time.
When we post a clip of something on Twitter specifically.
Yeah, get algorithms.
That is the most, because there are people who are just like, oh, well, I run a website, so here's how I'm going to come up with my news. I'm just going to scroll Twitter and cherry pick things that I like. So those are, you know, shorter clips, you know, out of a longer thing. And people are like, oh, there's a juicy quote or there's something. There was one recently, you know, when we were talking about the Pokemon leaks and the Pokemon budget, it was like, former Nintendo employees say the break even for Pokemon games is blank. It's like, well, we were spitballing. This was like back of the napkin math off of like, no, are these numbers real or not? But it's like, here it is. Here's the facts. And it's like people run with that. So we just see this happening, you know, over and over.
Yeah.
There is sort of this race to be the first with something. You know, that's how
Not only the first, but like the juiciest and most dramatic, which is why this quote was chosen in the first place.
But that's the winning combination for this. Juicy and first. And that will get you the engagement. And it's like, deal with the fallout later.
Don't care about the truth or the facts at all.
Like, oh, I can issue some, you know, weakly worded apology later, or you can delete it, or people will just move on and who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Until the next thing comes around. So people picked up on this. You know, people are like, what's going on here? Stealth had some follow-ups himself. He said, I deleted the original tweet I made about the Kyoto news story today about Nintendo and their movie efforts that, quote, quoted Miyamoto. I didn't do enough due diligence into the origins of the quote they used, and it wasn't accurate. I'm a huge fan of Miyamoto, and I'm so sorry I shared that. I would have made this message sooner after I was notified of the Kyoto news inaccuracy, but I was on a walk.
Sunday.
It was Sunday.
We're
all doing something.
Our personal things.
Yes, it's the second time this year I've made a quote mistake. I post so much positive stuff about Miyamoto, it sucks. Anyone would think rage bait was my intent, but I'll try and do better. That's what they say. Do better, Krysta.
Oh my God,
you need to do better.
You know, you can't fault Stealth. Yes, he made a mistake. He's only human. It was something that seemed juicy at the time, you know? So, like, it's not like he intentionally...
It can be a learning moment for everybody. I think the other example that he was calling out of falling for a bad quote was something with Sakurai around AI as well.
I remember that.
And that was also something...
one that we were talking about over the weekend.
That was also an original Japanese quote where there was a bad translation. Yes. So, again... If you see something that is translated from Japanese, like really like pause and be like, wait, before I react to this, before I get my hot tweet, let's look closer at like who did this translation, where did this come from?
What article was it from? What was the context?
What's the before and after of this?
What's the before and after? What was the article actually about?
Right.
The article probably wasn't about
AI.
It was probably about something else.
Right.
You know?
But this did run its course, but unfortunately, not everybody is going to follow up.
That's the thing.
On everything.
Yeah,
so
the more casual, like the person that's not just completely ingrained in the universe.
So this is how things like $90 games, Nintendo will brick your system, and whatever people want to take away from this just continue to endure because not everybody, I'm going to tap you, excuse me, did you know that this actually was refuted? And it's like, no, it wasn't, blah, 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 and we've all moved on to the next thing.
Exactly.
So that's how these things just endure and just become these like annoying artifacts of this misinformation that we can seemingly never be rid of.
We can't, and it's so hard to ask people to change their habits and do their own research.
Right.
You can't expect that from everybody. And it totally reminded me of that incident that you actually went through personally, which is the misquote about Mr. Miyamoto retiring.
Yes.
Those were the early days where we didn't have the fiery internet to spread it crazily, but it still went pretty viral.
I mean, that was an interesting case because the quote was coming from literally the person who was in the room with Mr. Miyamoto.
Yeah.
It was not a great translation.
There you go.
From the person doing the translation. So that was my other thought on this. It was like, was it so-and-so doing the translation? Because he's not the best translator for Mr. Miyamoto, and we've had some issues with that.
In the past. That translator in the past.
In the past. But again, not everybody knows that backstory.
No, only the person that works with him would know that backstory.
Not everybody can be expected to understand the what is it, coming on 15, 20 years
but even 15
legacy
years later, like people still remember that incident.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty pretty fresh for people still.
Whenever Chris Kohler is ready to come on and talk about it.
He is. He wants to tell
He's getting ready. He's assembling his notes.
we're gonna tell that story at some point. But yeah, like whenever something like this happened, especially with someone like Mr. Miyamoto, who's just so prolific and people just want to hear, they take every little thing that he puts out there and just really reads a lot into it. It just becomes very dangerous.
Right.
You know, it becomes very easy to be misinformed about stuff that he says or just become like taken away by the drama of it all because it's Mr. Miyamoto.
Right. So let's say, the people never found the original source and there was never the correction on this. What would Nintendo have done come Monday, come today? Would they have done anything? Would they have just been, well, forget it, we're moving on, we got other things to do? I feel like if they had been asked, they would have gone back and said, no, here's actually the original source and here's what he was trying to say.
Exactly.
I don't think they would have done anything proactive. I don't think you would have seen it on like the Nintendo IR site or anything like those tweets.
This is Miyamoto. No, I did not say this.
No, I don't think it's worth the time to do that. But if they got asked to be like, that's actually not the source of this and not what happened.
Exactly. Like they'd probably clarify if they were asked directly by a journalist. But yeah, I think they know that this kind of news also moves pretty quickly, and they'll probably just let it run its course as well.
We've also seen, and we've done polls with our community, and other people have voiced on this, like just the trust of, the quote
journalism,
the quote media, quote journalism is not there anymore. No. But it's interesting, so where Stealth is just a guy. Like Stealth is not a journalist. Stealth did not go to the Columbia School of Journalism or anything. He's just a guy sharing stuff online. So again, I don't know if people would lump him in with that. But again, as Gene Park shared, like there are these websites that come across as
sites.
We're an official thing representing and talking about video games.
Yeah, I feel like Games Radar.
Games Radar is pretty.
It's definitely a big games news.
They share a lot of our stuff too.
They probably shouldn't do this. They probably should do a little bit more research. I would fault a Games Radar more than I would fault just a guy like Stealth, who's just a guy.
But I don't know. I think there's plenty of people who just lump them all together.
Well, there's
like the media.
I mean, we've worked in games media. Like we were in PR for years, so we kind of like are more. Maybe not.
But again, the line is so blurred. It's like, well, everything out there is games media.
My point is exactly
this is a guy who's verified on Twitter. There you go.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Because if you're not in games journalism or games media, you would never know. You would just take anything from someone with a lot of followers, someone that frequently shares Nintendo news, to be someone that is responsible enough to share factual news.
Yes.
And it's not anyone's fault, but it's like, well, it's just very shaky. The state of games
Right.
journalism, or I think journalism as a whole, is quite precarious. Not only do you have all this stuff with AI that's just like so hard for people to distinguish, fact and fiction, you also have this phenomenon that you were just talking about, Al, like the only time you get any sort of, like positivity or engagement on your stuff is if you're first and if you're dramatic.
That is the incentive structure for those people today, which is very different than it was decades ago when you were selling a newspaper to Johnny on the newsstand on the corner.
You had like real journalism, and you had people that could take time to work on a story for months and then write about it and do the research.
You just described Gene Park.
Well, he
one of the last
Washington
ones.
Post.
One of the last
that's
ones.
a real newspaper.
One of the last ones.
It's actually a newspaper. Yeah.
What is your takeaway? What is your conclusion from this whole
What have we
saga?
learned?
First of all, what an annoying thing to happen on a Sunday.
What an annoying thing to happen on a Sunday. And definitely the learning is don't get tricked. Like, don't take everything at face value, especially as we outlined. Like, if it's coming from a Japanese speaker, if it's, a quote that's translated, if it's a quote that is just kind of a singular quote and you don't know the before and after, the context around it, like, don't just immediately say to yourself, this is true, I must react, I must retweet, I must have some hot take about this, because you probably should just take a little breath and make sure we're looking at the sources, doing some due diligence before this immediate need to react happens. So, yeah.
My takeaway is not an optimistic one, which is this is just going to get worse. Unfortunately, because it's not like this only happens in games. Like, this happens in every walk of life. Any topic that people are discussing online, like, this is what is happening, and it's not good. And it's making it harder to have an actual conversation. It's making it harder to know what is fact versus what is fiction. And it feels like everything is just like, well, let's blur the lines even more.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting pretty confused.
I don't know
myself. Like, so even sometimes when I like read stuff from very reputable sources, I'm like, wait, I need to look a little deeper.
Are you getting tricked by AI videos?
Am I getting tricked by AI videos? Am I getting tricked by like even reputable like news outlets?
That lady really did smash the glass on the aquarium.
Right?
Wait, all those fish. What?
All the fish went.
Oh my God, that really happened. Oh no.
So yeah, it's a little exhausting, honestly, to live in this world
I know.
where you just can't distinguish fact from fiction anymore, and you just have to like always have this kind of like little voice in your head telling you like, wait, do more research, do more, do your due diligence, because you don't want to get tricked. But I think a lot of people are very happy to just continue to get tricked too, because it's easier. It's much easier not to care.
Right.
It's much easier to take everything at face value and just be like, I'm just going to react to everything as if it's fact.
Yeah.
And that may be where we're headed, which is a little unfortunate, because then you live in a world of delusion. But that may be our reality. I don't know.
Yikes.
Wow. So I'm glad that the drama around this particular instance has seemed to have reached a conclusion. It's good that there is not sort of false or misinformation about Mr. Miyamoto like out in the world. I'm sure he appreciates that as well. But yeah, what do you guys think? Did you get taken away by this quote? Did you believe what you read? Did you get suspicious about what you saw and go and do your own research? Let us know in the comments, but don't get tricked. That's the takeaway.